All right, we are here with another Artivist Talk. We have a very, very amazing guest named Divine. Yeah, we are about to tap in. This is a very special episode number 10, and we are honoring all women. Yeah, all right, we matched. Divine, we did it, we did it, we did it. Thank you
Hi.
so much. We appreciate you so much for taking your time to do this. You're an amazing woman and a quintessential artist in my book. We're going to give it a few minutes to let some people trickle in here. Those of you who are entering the chat, thank you guys so much. Remember, if you feel somebody should be in here, please share this live. It will be hosted on the Creative Expression YouTube. I'm going to just start with a big thank you and just get it started with how I met Divine, and then I'm going to allow her to introduce herself, and then we're going to go into this amazing Artivist Talk. Shout out to Zubi from the UK, one of our big supporters of this. We got Berlin in the building. Shout out to Daniel in the house. We're going international. Only had to do it for this international star we got here with us today. Well, I met Divine really through divine intervention, I like to say. It was through her work, through an amazing organization called the Yaya Network. Big shout out to Beth Bliss, who was our last feature a few days ago for Women's Month, setting it off. And Beth Bliss is a Yaya alumni. Told me she went to school with Divine. Is like, wow, you got to meet this person. She's so amazing. She's doing such great work. I went to a holiday party, but before, low key, she pulled up at one of the Decipher events that we were doing in Brooklyn when we were squatting a venue. Shout out, we're past the statute of limitations. The venue is gone, but we were holding it down guerrilla style in there, and we had to get the art going and music, and we brought a lot of that same energy into the space. Divine is not only an artist, singer, songwriter herself. She is a youth organizer. She is a program director. She is an advocate for immigrant rights, for particularly Black immigrant rights. She is an amazing curator and facilitator of space. She recently had a birthday. Shout out to the Aquariuses. They're out here. And
Shout
yeah,
out.
I'm just honored to learn from you. We connected at the holiday party. It was good vibes. I saw how you set up that ladder with the sock stuffers. I was like, man, this is a very talented woman that has so much to offer this planet. And as me and you hopped on some conversations and calls, it's been nothing but an honor to learn more about you. So please introduce yourself. You know, if I missed anything or anything that resonates with you, please get it in, and we'll start with our first essential question.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I'm so grateful to be in this space with you, Y, and for anyone that's watching, hi. Yeah, this is the first time I'm doing something like this, so y'all give me grace.
Yes.
And I think you mostly got it for the introduction. The only thing I'll add is I am Cameroonian and Congolese, born in Cameroon, and
Mm.
being a migrant is a huge part of who I am. Like today, I'm wearing my No Human Being is Illegal earrings, which I feel the need to bring into this space, and it's always something that I feel very intentional and feel very seen when I wear outside my home as well.
Mm.
And I'm also wearing, what does this shirt say? It says Protect Black Migrants on my sweatshirt, which I got from Baji, which just stands for the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, which is another organization that I am doing work with.
Mm.
But yeah.
I love it, Divine. Quick opening question that we always start with. In
Mm.
creative expressions, we use the term artivism as that hybrid word, art and activism. For us, we define activism as activating our organisms to its highest potential, which means we are going to do good things for our body. We're going to pour into that infinite cup into ourselves. And when that cup overflows from our being, it can go into community, it can go into organizing, it can go into being a person of service, but not through burnout, not through becoming a human sacrifice. It does
Mm.
not require anybody to be political or any of those things, but it does require us to take active action and
Mm.
build that in. And you know that's how I've learned to define activism for me. But wanted to turn the mic to you and ask, what is activism and artivism to you?
Well, I would say I didn't always have the healthiest relationship with the term activism.
Mm-hmm.
I entered the organizing space just on like an experiential level in middle school through Girls Talk, Guys Talk, which is a program that a teacher of mine had started at the time. But quickly, when I entered high school, activism became this like ticket, this elitist ticket to recognition, to,
Woo.
you would add it onto your resume. It would be something that, your college application, you put it on your college application, it would give you this kind of like um pump almost to say.
Mm-hmm.
And as a young person that was re-entering the activism and organizing space,
Mm-hmm.
especially going to a very elitist school myself and also having those aspirations of going to college, I think I fell into those traps of wanting some of those things for
Mm-hmm.
myself or idolizing people that, individuals that I still look up to this day. Um, so it took a long time for me to unlearn that, and it took being in spaces that challenge that for me to broaden my understanding of what activism is
Mm-hmm.
and leaning more towards organizing as the framework for how I move about my community and understanding like we teach our young folks like there is a fundamental difference between what activism is and what organizing is. Like
Mm-hmm.
activism in our society is like there is an individual that we can pinpoint that is like this person is making change, right? And there's this sense of like, oh, this person is taking ownership of the movement.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas organizing is about community. It's an understanding that none of this happens on an individual basis. Like
Woo.
I cannot go out and change the world by myself. I can't change world hunger. I can't do none of that by myself. It takes community. It's not about, ownership of the movement. And I think that has always been the case, but due to like the way that our society tends to what's the word I'm looking for? Like co-opt organizing work, we've strayed away from that. Like even when we think about the civil rights movement, we think of like specific leaders, we think about MLK, we think about Malcolm
Mm-hmm.
X, and we're like, oh, these were activists. But no, they were organizers. They just happened to be the people that, were palatable or like were able to be demonized enough to gain that kind of recognition. But there were hundreds and hundreds of other people working alongside these
Woo.
figureheads that were doing the organizing work. And yeah, I don't know MLK personally, obviously,
Yeah.
but I feel like if he were alive today, he would be saying like this took community. This was not just like my
Mm.
big I have a dream speech or my letter from Birmingham jail. This took community. So I'm moving away from activism and more towards organizing as my framework. But artivism, I think, is something different, something that I hold a lot of respect for. Because I think
Mhm.
any ways in which our communities are trying to support one another and advance our liberation in a way that exists outside of institution is something that I will support because our institutions aren't built to save us.
Mm.
So artivism, I think, is another way in which we navigate our own liberation.
Woo. All right, we're ending the talk right there. Divine just did a mic drop in the first four bars. That's what we call the hitters out here. You came out with the man. I'm so honored. Every time I have a conversation with you, I learn more about myself. I see deeper parts of the galaxy. I have to start switching up the filters over here to try to encompass this woman's amazing, magnetic, powerful energy that you draw from a deep well, right? I consider you an intergalactic being because you're something about your energy is just it reaches deep. I want you to talk a little bit about your upbringings and your origin because as someone who is a black woman, a lot of the stories get erased, and you are more than what you do. Me and you
Yeah.
have had a few conversations at this point, and I know that you're journey is a rich one, and it is a rich journey that is constantly evolving. You're in such a high position for someone who's numerically so young. I'm like, man, this woman is wise beyond her years, and I know that didn't just come out of nowhere. It came from something that is inherently your experience. So would love for you to in whatever way you feel, tell us a little bit about your origins and your upbringing and how it inspired you to be the woman you are today.
Yeah, I think that question has really been the theme for me this week. I did another interview where somebody asked me like, who am I outside of movement and the things that I do? And the first thing that I said is that I'm an older sister, and I went into what that means to me. But in terms of like where I come from, like I said at the beginning, I'm Cameroonian from the Bassa tribe, was born in the capital, Yaoundé. And on my mother's side, I'm also Congolese. And
Hmm.
so that is where my story begins. It starts with, two people coming together and deciding to make a life together, before my father immigrated to the United States. And he started in Louisiana selling flowers before he made his way to New York City, where he then started selling books and created his own book business on the street of 125th Street in Harlem, and raised, saved enough money to bring us over, back in 2004. So
Wow.
that is the beginnings of my story. Is just like, this little black girl making their way to Harlem. And Harlem has been my home ever since.
Mm.
So I went to middle school in Harlem, I went to elementary school in Harlem, and anyone that went to those schools with me can probably attest like that was like formative, really, really formative years. You're learning a lot about yourself.
Hmm.
And I look back on those years sometimes to be like, oh, this is the person that I was at the time, and these are the foundations of who I am today. Some things I have to shed and unlearn from those years, and other things have really protected me and helped me to grow to who I am today.
Mm.
So yeah, so like I said, like my introduction to organizing work did also begin in Harlem, through the program Girls Talk, Guys Talk. Shout out to Aurora if you are watching this, or if you get a chance to watch this.
Hmm.
I always mention her, and I always mention that program because I don't know if I would have gotten to this point had I not been introduced at such a young age,
Hmm.
to what community work looks like. And at that age, we weren't necessarily like, organizing on like a professional level or on like a super structured level, but it was really like, introductions. Like I went to my very first March Against Gun Violence, and
Hmm.
was introduced to that through Girls Talk Guys Talk. I went to some of the first Black Lives Matter movement marches, and that
Hmm.
was through Girls Talk Guys Talk. And outside of that, we were also encouraged to be in community with one
Woo.
another. So, we to the Schomburg Center. We went to their exhibits. We performed at the Schomburg Center. I remember I performed one of my songs there for the very
Yeah.
first time, and that was encouraged. Um, so yeah, that was, I would say, like in terms of where it began for me, it was definitely those first few years.
Wow. Look at that, Divine. I'm learning so much about you and the deep history of making that way all the way from the Congo to the urban jungles of Harlem and then to the activism to the Schomburg and back. Wow, that's so amazing. Organizing has been a key point in community in what you've been speaking on so far,
Hmm.
right? We know in this society, which is why I do these talks, right? This is it can easily be a hyper individualized world.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to get out for mine. I got to do it for me. I ain't got time to this for everybody, but we're all in this village of humanity together, right?
Mhm.
I want you to speak on organizing in community and how those two intersect and work together for you and how you as an individual navigate within that community, right? We know as organizers, we can fall victim to burnout. It can be so you can forget about your own wants and needs. I remember when I was working on the doc with you, I was like, hey, make sure you think about what you need,
Hmm.
whether that be as a singer or what makes you happy. And we can't leave these parts out of it. So how do you balance community and organizing and also keep your own identity of self and not just lose yourself, for lack of a better term, to a way that a lot of organizers do. We drown in our work a lot of times, and I know it's happened to you. I'm sure, but how do you navigate within community and building community and still keeping your identity as an individual? Woo-hoo. Do we lose? Do we got you? Anybody writing in the chat? Can you guys see this? Test, test. Can anyone throw hearts in the chat if you're seeing this? It's like we're gonna have to reboot it. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Divine is frozen. Well, I'm gonna give it a minute. See if we can get her in the connection. It's froze. Thank you, Zuba. You're the woman. Yes. I'm frozen. Okay. Let me see if I can drop it and then bring it back in. Let's see, right? And this is what it is, y'all. This is what it takes. We're using these platforms and we're there. Let me drop it and see if I can bring her back. Boom, boom. And then let me invite Divine back. And yeah, guys, this is what I love about this. This is a conversation. This is organic. These are things that are happening right here. Let's see if we're back. Yeah, we're back.
Okay. All
All
right. Sorry
good.
about that, y'all. So yeah, you were also can if y'all are hearing any weird sounds, that's my elevator. Just ignore that in the background.
I was like, yo, she's
Um,
got some animal rights activism
no,
going on back there.
no, that's like landlord not doing their job.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I think I understood and heard your question about how do I navigate community as an organizer and still stay true to myself and not burn out,
Yeah.
essentially. Um, well, I will say my organizing work these days looks a lot different than what it did when I was a young person or what
Mm-hmm.
we consider to be young people at the organization I work at. So when I was a young person, my organizing definitely looked like um, being in community, being with other like-minded young people that cared about these issues, working together to develop testimony, going out together as supports whenever we were speaking to, these folks that are in charge of our lives but aren't necessarily listening to our needs.
Mm.
Um, and now I'm in a position where I'm guiding young people to learn how to do those very same skills. So I'm more of like on the back end
Mm.
of it, which I think everyone
Mm.
has their role in organizations and within organizing work. Like not everyone can be on the front lines. Of course, that doesn't mean I'm completely out of the loop. Like I still support my young people when they are on the front lines. I'm there for their safety. I'm there for their confidence. I'm there to prep them for the work that they're doing. But that question of burnout is something that I find extremely important in the work that I do. I think as organizers, especially as people that work within the nonprofit sector,
Mm-hmm.
this idea of burnout becomes normalized. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the one area where folks are like, oh, you can miss a meal. Don't worry about the pay. Don't worry about the sleep because the justification is that you're doing it in service of community.
Mm.
And I think that is actually extremely unhealthy and toxic. And also, what's the word? Counterproductive to
Mm.
movement work because the point of what, and I guess I'm going to go there, but the point of
Go ahead.
capitalism is to burn us out, is to keep us busy with the work so that we aren't, we don't have the time to actually pour into our communities and to challenge the systems that exist because who has time to go to a protest if you're working two or so jobs? And then if all you're doing is going to the protest day in, day out, and you get sick, you're not taking care of yourself. And so then you become useless and useless in capitalistic terms to the movement as well.
Mm.
And so that is something that I rebuke. That's something that I deny as a practice that we should accept as organizers. I believe in healing justice. I believe in pouring into ourselves and pouring into our communities and giving ourselves space for fun, for joy, for relaxation. Because if that doesn't exist, then we literally don't have the capacity to push change forward.
Woo.
Um, so yeah, that's definitely my position around burnout.
Woo. Divine. I need to take a moment. Woo. That is a couple points I want to reinforce. It's capitalism that's pushing us toward burnout so that we can't even do the things that we would like to do or need to do for movements or for ourselves. That's a huge gem Divine dropped. Also, it's about pouring into yourself, something we mentioned earlier in this conversation, right? I do
Mm-hmm.
want to ask you now about your creativity and your forms of creative expression, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of us who are doing this work, we have our own goals, we have our own things that are beyond the community, and we're here. And a lot of times that gets pushed to the side, right? And we don't. That's why a big part of what I'm doing with Artivism is to make sure in these spaces that are organized and activist minded or organizer minded, I'm going to keep what you're saying, because we are organizing ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and organizing our organisms and organizing our organs to create, right? How do you see that this, I don't want to call it a container, but I feel like it's almost a gumbo of soup that we all are putting in to make this special ingredients. How is art important to this? And how is your creative expression important to that, right? When so many people put their dreams and goals aside for the greater cause, kind of like you said in the capitalist approach. I don't got time to do this. I got to just do this. And some things that we hold near and dear, we're born as creatives and artists, I believe. Every child
Yeah.
sings, draws, and dances by nature. And sometimes we're losing that. So how do you keep connected to your art? And, tell us a little bit about your creative expression in your art and how that works hand in hand with organizing.
Yeah, I mean, as you were asking me that question, something that came up for me is that art, especially music, has always been a part of resistance, a resistant movement. Again, back to my experience in middle school, like we learned songs that enslaved people sang on their way to freedom.
Mm,
Like these things have always been a part of of movement. It's the way that we tell our stories. It's the way that those stories continue to be passed down in a way that a lot of people can connect to, because a lot of times these organizing spaces can be elitist, and folks are using language that not everyone is connected to. Like, who has time to talk about, what is your socioeconomic status, what is hegemony, what is XYZ? Those terms are important to know, but that's not the language that is going to connect to everybody. But music does, art does. That's a
mm,
universal language, and I think that that is the place that it has within movement work, is in connecting to us across language, across generation, across age, everything. As far as my own uh, creative expression, music has always been a part of who I am as well. Like, I think it took me a while to realize that I think I got it from my dad.
mm,
He used to be very informally, like he used to be like this guy in the village that would, always keep people entertained, always singing these little songs. And,
nice.
he very much brought that back home, and very much still is that guy with his family, like is always saying, when is our family album going to come
Hey,
out? Always like
hey.
making up these little songs and like asking us to join in with him. So I think that that's really where I got it from. I think it's in my blood.
Mm,
And it's also the way that I started making music as well. Like,
mm,
I think that everybody has their own process for when they write songs,
mm-hmm,
when they create
mm-hmm,
music. For me, sometimes it's always more spontaneous. Like there is a melody,
mm-hmm.
like a lyric that comes into my head. And most of the time it doesn't make any sense. Like I could be mopping the house, literally. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking back to a time I was just mopping the house, and then I was thinking about SpongeBob. Like these things are
Mm,
so random. But then a song popped into my head just
mm.
from that I started singing. I'm like, this is my dad right now. I'm just like him in that way.
Wow.
But yeah, I started writing music again in middle school. I think I still have the journal that has a lot of my songs in there. I have a lot of
Mm,
voice notes that I record. My process has never been start with the chords or the melody or anything like that. I've always started with the lyrics,
mm,
what comes from my heart. And most of the time, I think these days when I write music, which is actually not as often as I would like, um, I think I've gotten more to writing songs that are more on the political side. Like I remember definitely in
mm-hmm,
2020, I wrote one or two songs that were around, the kind of pain that I was seeing happening within the Black community.
mm-hmm,
Sometimes there's songs about love, sometimes there's songs about just like the general trials and tribulations of growing up in this
Mm.
world and living this life. So yeah, I would say that that's where how my creative expression shows up is in writing music. I'm also learning the guitar, and hoping to bring those two things together. I kind of away from that after high school. I definitely did write songs alongside the guitar in high school and had one or two songs recorded. But
Mm-hmm.
I've since then I've had to reteach and relearn
Yeah.
all of that and trying to bring those two things together again.
Ooh, well, Divine, I know I mentioned it to you. We want to make sure we water that part of your growing nature and support that because
Mm.
that's very important for you to hold space for that young divine that was in you to, and I love how you said that music and your history and your lineage is connected. There's something about a lot of the African artists I meet that the origin of civilization and the codes that are found in those rhythms. And it's usually found in family gatherings, right? And in these very not so glitzy, glamorous spaces. And that approach to music is so spiritual in my experience. So once again, anything I and we can do to help you continue that and make sure you balance that part of you, we're here for that. We got you on that. And that's going to lead me to the next question I have for you, right? As someone who is now came up, as you said, in these community organizing since a youth, now you've been with Yaya and you're in a director position, right? And you're starting to see the generation that's coming after you. And you're starting to see how young folks are different, right? Each generation puts a different spin on it, a different twist. And now you're not just the young organizer walking in the streets, right? You're getting there and you're making your work growing as you are in now a upper position, in this. How has that shifted? And what has changed now that you are in this leadership role versus someone who was a youth? How has that journey been for you, being someone who came up with some of the amazing mentor and femtorships? It looked like you came through organizations and individuals that deeply impacted your life. Now you're the one, I'm sure, who's deeply impacting some of the other young folks, as I've witnessed and seen some of the relationships you're building. And how has that journey been as you stick with this, right? This wasn't just a phase, this is part of your work. And yeah, please take us through that journey a little bit.
Um, I think it started with grief, I would say, like
Mm.
almost like sometimes we grieve because we lose people, and sometimes we're grieving a transition that is happening in our lives that we're not necessarily ready for. Like, I know
Mm-hmm.
I made a conscious decision to step into this role, but I also knew it started to feel like the end of an era, like the end of my youth organizing era
Mm.
and into more adult space. And it was a bit weird because one day I was with my peers in those meetings discussing, when is the next panel for education policy meeting? What are our tests?
All right, y'all. Instagram is showing its digital behind on
What
us,
is
giving us some
happening?
yo, it just
Oh my gosh.
today is something, yo. Today is something in here. But we
Yeah.
got it. The first part was saved. We're gonna continue. I like to say Instagram showed its digital ass on us to
Yeah.
show us that we need to create our own platforms.
Yeah.
But we're back. And Divine, the last thing that I heard was you were starting to get into
Mm-hmm.
now you left off like now that you've been kind of segueing into the
Yeah.
leadership position, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
it took some time to get used to that. Because like I said, one day I was organizing right alongside my peers, and the next day I was considered almost like their boss. And that was a very weird thing to be transitioning
Wow.
into. Like I could say like it literally happened maybe in the same moment. Um,
Ooh,
so
ooh.
it took a lot of time to transition into that space, um, and acknowledge like, okay, there are new responsibilities that I'm being given now. And in the first year, very much still like learning.
Yeah.
I think now I've hit a stride where I feel comfortable taking leadership in that way in my community. And I definitely am seeing the impact that I'm having, if not on huge amounts of people, at least like on one or two people, that's enough for
Mm.
me. Like being able to speak with parents that tell me like, oh, my kid has learned so much from you, or they've gained this experience from this program that you're running. it always makes me feel so proud. And I'm almost like, as an older sister, I also have like mom tendencies. And
Mm.
so when I see them out in the world and they're doing great things and they come back and they're like, "Oh, Divine, thank you so much. You did XYZ." I'm like, "Nah, that was literally all you." Like all we did at Yaya, all we do at Yaya is create the space for your leadership to flourish. But it doesn't happen unless you already have the will within you. And so I've seen our young folks do amazing things. They continue to do amazing things, that just make me proud.
Wow.
Um, but I'm not sure if I answered all of your question, but that's
Nah,
what
you
comes
you
to
do
mind.
great. It's a combo love. A lot of these are just jumping points for you to really express yourself, and I just riff off of it, just like a couple musicians bouncing back and forth off each
Mhm.
other. It's no difference, right? The part that I want you to expand on
Mm,
is immigration, and particularly what you've spoken on Black migrant rights, right? A lot of faces of immigration, and you really brought something to my attention. My family's from Guyana, so we got all spectrums from it, from the Afro to the Indo to the indigenous, right? And when you do hear about immigrant struggles, right, I think a lot of what used to come to my mind as a younger person was, oh, Latin immigrants or people from Mexico, Guatemala, and these things that were, I think, for America, because that border of Mexico is right there and people crossing that. But this is really a global thing, and it was only until my cousin, who does political asylum for the UN, was like, she's brought to places, things going on all around the world, especially places that are torn by their resources being exploited, war going on a global level. I want you to just speak on Black migrants and Black migrant rights. And I know this is near and dear to your heart because of your actual experience as someone who is one, and it's not just you seeing some news article and then we have to save the people in Rwanda or something, right? This is your life, and I know it's huge, huge part of what you stand for and what you advocate for. So please open that box as you choose, and take it as your heart calls.
yeah, thank you for uplifting that. Black migrant justice, like you said, is very near and dear to my heart through my personal experience. It's still something that I am just setting my feet into within the organizing realm because so much of my professional experience is around education justice. And I'm wanting to shift more of that to migrant justice, especially Black migrant justice. Hence the work
Mm-hmm.
that I'm doing with my mentor from Baji.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Black migrants are unseen. We are unseen, and what makes our struggles particularly of erasure of our experiences. Migrants on a broad level across the board, especially in the United States, um, we don't have rights. Okay, like we're very limited in terms of what we are able to do, and still I've witnessed a lot of resilience and solidarity within our community that is something to be mentioned and to be uplifted. But my journey towards Black migrant justice especially comes with a need for increasing access to resources around the education system. So just a merging of those two, like migrant justice and education justice, and having Black migrants have access to scholarships, have access to funding to
Mm-hmm.
afford college, have access to guidance counselors that actually know how to direct undocumented immigrants, how to direct documented immigrants towards resources that can make that a reality. Education within the migrant
Mm-hmm.
community is sometimes, if not all the time, seen as this savior. I'm gonna wait for that noise to pass. Okay. It's kind of seen as this savior. Like you go to school, you gain your education, and then a whole world of opportunity will open up to you. Now, on the other side of it, I know that that is not necessarily the case. Whether you're an immigrant or not, that's just not the case in the United States anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a straight path. But
Mm-hmm.
as a young person who grew up hearing those narratives, I was very much the bookworm, was very much a teacher's pet, was like, this is going to be the thing that saves me. And
Mm.
then realizing when it came to the college process that it was not going to be that easy, or that those promises were actually lies, um, was extremely heartbreaking. And is what continues to galvanize me to not have anyone else experience the things that I did during the college process as a young person. But I'm also acknowledging that our experiences as migrants go beyond what I know from my own experience. Like, there is no
Mm.
story that is the same. My experience as a Black migrant is different from my sister's experience, and we live in the same household, have the same upbringing, but she's navigating it way differently than I am. Um,
Mm.
has come across different resources than I have. So I acknowledge as an individual, I don't know everything there is to know within this sphere. And so this year and last year has really been, for me, a journey of exploration and learning, and entering spaces more with folks that look like me, with folks that, come from similar walks of life, hence the work that I'm doing with Baji. Like, I just came from a diaspora dinner that
Mm.
my mentor Melissa hosted, and we had folks from Haiti, we had folks from Brazil, where else did we
Mm.
have folks, Liberians, like, all in community together, eating food and talking about our shared experiences as Black migrants. And of course, different things came up that, like, oh, I didn't know that that was happening in Brazil, or wow, I didn't know that that's happening in Haiti right now, to like, oh yes, I'm also experiencing that, or these are the common myths that we collectively experience in the American context when it comes to being Black migrants.
Mm.
Especially now where we have this quote unquote migrant crisis. Within that meeting, we were challenged to contextualize that not as a migrant crisis, but as a crisis of resources, as a crisis of perspective, as a crisis of priorities, where our city is simply not prioritizing us, and our city is continuing to stoke division between migrants that are coming into the city and folks that have been living here for a while. It's continuing to stoke this misinformation about scarcity, that there isn't enough places to put people, there isn't enough money
Mm-hmm.
to give people. Mind you, Black migrant organizations, migrant justice organizations broadly, have been meeting with city officials and have been giving solutions that would
Mm.
actually save the city money. But that has been ignored. It's been put to the wayside in hopes of, like, hanging on to um these false narratives, essentially, that continue to be like, okay, these folks are coming in to steal our jobs, to steal our homes. Like, how come they're being pushed
Yes.
faster to gain these access to resources, when American citizens that have been living here a while are being ignored, when in reality we are all being ignored. That division is a distraction from the person that is actually, or the people, or the laws, or the institutions that are actually causing us harm. And so we're
Woo.
too busy talking like this. Oh, these migrants from Mexico, these migrants from Nicaragua, from
Yeah.
Sudan, like wherever we're coming from, like, oh, they're coming in and they're changing up our community. Like, no, we're coming here because of American imperialism and the impact that that has had on our countries, that make it impossible to stay in our countries. And y'all are experiencing that same American imperialism on the soil in ways that you don't
Woo.
even have access to free healthcare. You don't even have access to affordable housing, and we are all living in the
Yes.
same ecosystem of oppression, and we are distracted by these conversations of us versus them, when it's
Woo.
really institution versus community.
Woo. I'm gonna take a breath on that one. Institutions versus community. Put some respect on that statement. And I'm gonna go there, Divine, because you're going there. So many people, just like you said. I heard something. The mayor, I was in a meeting with the mayor at Lincoln Center, and he pulled a cop out. He said, "Oh, we would have had money." They were asking why you're slashing the art budgets. And then the mayor
Mm.
was like, "Oh, it was because we have a new influx of this and this." It's bullshit, y'all. It's lies, and it's blatant lies. The institutions and the systems and these organizations are full of it, right? How do we get off of that, the tit of the cow, so to speak, where I think we have to start building our own, right? And you spoke about institutions a lot in our conversation thus far, right? And what's usually being pushed is a false narrative. I want to point out what you said. There's solutions that are developed for community for everything from housing to policing to all the problems that we're facing. Community-led initiatives like community land trusts to help fix the rent, food justice and agricultural growing to help do these things from farmers markets and local growers, right? We as people have answers and we want these answers used, but these institutions are acting like, oh, no, we don't. And meanwhile, they're bamboozling millions and billions of dollars. And I personally, I've turned into a little bit more of an abolitionist because I feel alternative systems have to come, you know? I don't think that these systems that are rooted in oppression can be reformed to serve us unless there is a huge, literally upheaval. You know, even AOC is getting called out because she won't admit these things are legit genocides and what's happening. So, like, I think it's, I'm gonna just let you take it because I get real passionate about this. But are we gonna get any answers through these institutions? Can they be reformed, or do we just gotta make our own new stuff? What are your thoughts on this? Because it's a big one. This is a big one.
The obvious answer for me is no. We can't. And my political praxis is still developing. Like, I'm still figuring out where I land, but I do
Mm-hmm.
know what I believe in and what I don't believe in. And what I believe in, again, is community and our capacity to look out for one another, to provide for one another.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing, I would say almost nothing that we have that is good came because the government was like, hey, I feel for you. You can have this. No, it
Mm-hmm.
came through struggle. It came through the struggle of people demanding.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, like, our movements are being co-opted, like it's becoming
Yes.
this thing that you can make profit off of. We now have careers, I'm recognizing my position within this as well. Like, I am making a career off of, this kind of struggle that is happening in our society. It has been co-opted, and
Mm.
the effectiveness of it has also been diluted because of that. And so that is by design, that is on purpose. And so it
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of practice, and it also takes vision to imagine what this looks like outside of institution. And this is a conversation that I had with a Palestinian friend of mine months ago, where I was acknowledging, like, there are things that we need to do as a community to let go of the comforts. We have to let go of certain comforts that we have in order to actually see a revolution. But there
Mm.
are certain things for every single person, it's different. That one thing that we aren't able to let go of. Unfortunately, for some people, that thing is a Starbucks drink, and then for some other
Mm-hmm.
people, it's like, some, again, like, think for yourself, what is that thing that you cannot let go of, or what is that thing that will make you uncomfortable, or what is that thing that is stopping you from taking radical action against the things that we are witnessing happening within our
Mm-hmm.
times. And collectively, we all have those things that are giving us that comfort that we can't separate ourselves from. And that's, I think, that is the reason why we aren't able to see our way toward an actual revolution yet, because we're not
Mm-hmm.
all collectively there, and we also don't share collective vision around what that looks like. Not everybody
Mm-hmm.
has the same idea of, like, okay, this is what a liberated world looks like, or this is what a world without policing looks like, this is what a world that is actually democratic looks like. Like, we don't have large scale examples. We have smaller examples of how this has happened. We have, you know, um, the Black Panthers and the ways in which they were giving free breakfast across the country. I don't know if it was across the country, but that idea of giving our communities food was a radical thing to do, and then that was also co-opted by our government. Is now something that we have standardized. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so essentially, my short answer to your question is no. I don't think that our liberation lies within these institutions. I think I'm on my way to calling myself an abolitionist, although I do want to still sit with that and do my research around that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I believe that it lies within our communities through mutual aid efforts, through, through transformational justice.
Yeah. Look, Divine, you really touched so much deep points that need to be said and they need to be echoed, right? Organizing on a communal level is something that is a common thread in this conversation. I want to encourage people, do not think too small is not enough. I cook dinner with people usually a few times a week. I have to, like, Beth helps make the cat food I use sometimes and gets this. We exchange, do it on a simple level. Look at how you can look out for a person. I've done potluck with food stamps. You know, we go to farmers market because for every five you get two extra food stamp dollars to do this. You got to really, that's why I'm amplifying what Divine is saying, because a person who's doing the work like her needs to be heard. And like, we don't need to go to CBS or need to get this. It's us. It's all in us. It's the power is always in the people. I want to reinforce something she said. Any movement that has been for people has been made by the people and then co-opted with a watered down version that doesn't even serve people as good as the people were when we were doing the work ourselves, right? So this is what it is. I do want to get into your mind, Divine. I love the way you think so much about action-based things we could do, right? I know you spoke on organizing and really locking in community, right? And figuring out how we can make those things and partnering. I know partnerships, that's one thing you and I are speaking on and literally working on. I put Yaya as a community partner. We want you on our Artivist roster, right? That I just start as on the power of one, right? That's what I really tell people. Please do not sleep on the one thing. Do not wait for these systems. But what pointers can you give to people who are feeling that, right? Because I think default, people fall into the institutional systemic ways because it's the lowest hanging fruit, right? They're like, oh, I'll just go to this protest. I'll sign this petition. And, and unfortunately, that's not leading to change, right? It's been going on for years and years, and we're not seeing the changes that we know and are proposing can happen. So would love to know from your perspective, what are some actions people can take, or what are some things that we can break down on a community smaller basis that can lead to these larger changes that we're speaking on.
Um, what comes to mind is actually you and what you were saying at the last Mixer event around the need to create genuine connection with
Mm-hmm.
people, actually leaving a space and doing that in a very intentional way. And I think that tends to be the hardest thing to do because our communities are close and personal to us, and having tough conversations with our loved ones can sometimes be the scariest thing. Sometimes it's easier to, get on your soapbox and scream to the world that you believe in XYZ, but say that to the person that you care about the most that might disagree with you, you become more hesitant to say that because that's a close relationship you may not want to
Mm.
lose, or maybe you already feel isolated within what you believe or what you're experiencing, and you feel that there isn't no one's going to care, no one's going to listen. A lot of the young people that I've worked with, like, they're like, Yaya is the only space where there are people that are actually talking about the things they care about. They go to school and these conversations are not had. You don't talk with your friends after school around, oh, like, what are we y'all gonna hit up this protest with me? Or no, we talking about, what's Sally doing dating John? Like, that's what we want to talk about.
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with that because those are our safe spaces. Yes.
Mm.
And so sometimes we don't want to disrupt that safety to have tough conversations. And also because of the
Mm.
world that we are living in, we're taught to be more individualistic. How many of us knows our neighbor? Knows the name of the person that we've been living across for the past XY years. So even the idea of like knocking on your neighbor's door and be like, hey, the Tenants Rights Association in our building is having a meeting out back. Would you like to join? They're like, nah,
Mm.
got a place. You know, everyone's coming from different walks of life. Everyone has different reasons as to why they might feel uncomfortable to do that. Even myself as an organizer, I'm like, oh, I don't have time
Mm-hmm.
to go to this meeting. I have to do something else. Like it takes, I think it starts at the level of investment that we have in the relationships that we are building um, with our community members, with the people that are actually closest to us, because that is how
Mm.
mutual aid efforts begin. You don't know, you might know what you need, but you don't know how to show up for your neighbor because you're not speaking to your neighbor. You don't know what they need. Where maybe you're witnessing your neighbor struggle, but because there isn't that relationship there, you don't want to get into their business. New York City is great. New
Mm.
York City is all about minding your business, okay? So it
Right?
becomes hard to show up for one another in that way. Um,
Woo.
but I believe over the pandemic, mutual aid efforts were some of the things that were actually saving our communities. You know, elders that couldn't go out grocery shopping or who were um, um, immunocompromised. Like mutual aid efforts were leveraged in order to get them groceries. You know, like that's
Yes.
on a very basic level because our government was failing us.
Yeah.
You know, those are the
Yeah.
smaller things that we can begin to do, like challenge yourself to have those conversations. And I see someone in the comments said like gentrification has impacted that. Yes, because our community members are also like, we don't recognize who you just got here. You just got here, and it's also changing the landscape of what we've known our community to be, and that also decreases the amount of trust that we're building between one another. But again, when the chips fall, it's not the government that's going to save us. It's really going to be us. And so, what is it going to take to have those conversations? That's a challenge that I'm facing myself, that I know a lot of community members are facing, organizers can sometimes be facing. It's easy to
100.
do this work with people that are already doing the work, that already know the messaging, that already know the language, that already care. But to do this work with the people that are juggling other things in life, they're not in those meetings organizing the protest with you. No, they are at home, they are at school, they're wherever, they have their own needs, their own priorities. It's harder to have discussions like that with your community.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to be able to navigate conversations that you might not necessarily agree with, and perspectives that you might not
Yes.
necessarily agree with your community members. And that's not to say that you can accept and hear anything. I think we should all have lines that we draw around, you know, what we allow into our lives and what we don't. But when it comes to that basic level of like, okay, you're like, if I'm talking to my grandmother, may she rest in peace, but if she were alive with me today, and you know, she's a woman born and raised in Cameroon, she's gonna have different perspectives around what is happening in New York City than I am. You know, I'm gonna be like, grandma, no, this is what happened. She's like, nah, I come from a very traditional background, this is what I believe. You know, and you
Mm.
have to be able to navigate those difficult conversations, and again, it's harder to do that with the people that are closest to us than anybody else.
Woo! Divine with the bars. Divine, I want to thank you for your vulnerability. You said something real that I'm going to always reinforce. The answers are within us. And I like to tell people, look, the hard part is it's up to us. The good part is it's up to us, you know? And it sounds almost like an oxymoronic statement, but we have to think on that micro to macro level, right? Like we have to think about our daily actions. You said something really powerful, like we don't know our neighbors. I've been in this building for 2+ years, and we baked some muffins and vegan cookies to give, and they ate them and they didn't do anything. I put notes under the door, and you know, at first I was a little heartbroken, right? I do game nights over here. I did things, I tried, right? And you know what I realized, Divine? It's exactly what you said. People are like, well, I got school. I got to take care of my kids. I got my job. I don't got no. And then I was like, damn. Now, I'm a person who's been at the verge of homelessness. I've gone through this. I've gone through rental support things, but somehow it always works out. What I want to tell people is do not be any underestimating of what power happens in your own being when you are moving with love. And you know, thank you for the acknowledgement about saying what we were doing in the mixer, and you were a big part of it, right? Because if you didn't hold the space and open the door, there would be no me with the band and anything, right? So it's a symbiotic relationship. And the big part that I really want enhanced to people is how much power we do have, how much power is in this singular conversation. That's why I had these conversations in silence and in the dark for so many years. And now I'm just like, anything I do, I don't care if the elevator's squeaking or the helicopters are rumbling or my radiators making noises in the background. We're gonna do the work, and we're gonna put it going one foot in front of the other. And the more of us that accept that greatness in ourselves and love ourselves, it is contagious. Because when other people, like when I saw you, and I was like, man, Divine Soona, I went and had to do extra 50 push-ups. I'm like, yo, let's go, let's go. I'm like, I'm like, yo, she's got a job, man. She's still doing this. I was like, yo. I was like, nah, she's taking time to do this. I was like, yo, let's get the pictures, let's go. And that is contagious, love. And your energy is so beautiful and magnificent and inspiring by just who you are. And I just want people to know that who you are is enough. Man, this is going by so fast. I love speaking to you. Once again, you could hear it in my tone how this really works. But what I want to point out, what Divine is saying is, it is in the day-to-day interactions. It is in the little things that we neglect. I want to turn it to one more question on decolonizing, right? We've all been conditioned, and a lot of it becomes when you learn enough. They say when you're a child, you learn. When you're an adult, that's when you have to start unlearning, right? And you have to start untangling, some of these things that have been conditioned in our day-to-day practices, right? What can you speak on, and just take it organically, with decolonizing oneself and being open to the new, right? There's a level of unknown that's happening on a day-to-day basis that we're living through, right? And how can we be open to something? Yes, we study our ancestors and the foundation, but I think what this is going to take is us making a new recipe that has not been seen before, but still coming on the foundation. So how do we decolonize, or how do you work on decolonizing within self? And yeah, take that, because I think that we really need to unlearn a lot, right? I think so much focus, abundance is a natural state of existence. This is not something that has to be obtained or acquired through these capitalistic thoughts, but it is a way of being and a way of existing. So, speak to us on decolonization, and what that feels like and means like to you, so that we can make these changes that are needed.
Yeah, I think decolonization, some of it is internal work, where you're
Yeah.
recognizing coping mechanisms or ideas that you have about certain groups or even about yourself that no longer serve you or no longer serve your community. And those unhealthy behaviors and practices shows up differently for each and every single one of us. And some of us, including myself, might need therapy to get over that and do that internal work.
Yeah, exactly.
But then some of it I think is also communal. Like I am constantly being, I mean, I think I am blessed to have people in my life that are constantly challenging me and the things that come out of my mouth. Like they don't just let anything slide. They're like, whoa, Divine, that was self-hate, or whoa, Divine, what do you think that this is, saying about our communities? Like that people like that in my life that are constantly helping me to grow and to increase or to rather expand my perspective on this world that we're living in is part of that decolonizing process for me. And also
Mm-hmm.
like the program that I am running is guiding our young folks in that decolonizing process too, because it calls you to think about the different parts of your identity and how different parts of your identity impact the way that you navigate your communities, how you navigate organizing work, and then what are the different parts of your identities that actually give you privilege within certain spaces. And
Mm.
what does that privilege look like? What does it mean to be an ally within those spaces and to actually move beyond allyship into accomplishment and to move beyond accomplishment
Mm.
into co-conspiratorship? Like, what does that look like for each and every single one of us as individuals? And that takes a lot of decolonizing too, because it's
Mm-hmm.
difficult for people to acknowledge I do have privilege. Some of us don't really know how to acknowledge that, and then we don't know what to do
Facts.
after we have acknowledged that. And so that's what my program seeks to guide young people in how to do. So yeah, I think it's two parts. Like part of it is that internal work that we each have to do for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But this decolonizing work doesn't happen in isolation. It doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Yes.
Conversations and challenges that we have to encounter with our community members, if we are especially lucky to have community around us that wants to have these discussions and to hold us accountable.
Wow. Divine. You are divine. You live up to that name. It's such an honor, and it's a privilege for me to do my best to hold space for some of your thoughts, ideas, and your voice, right? And this is what is needed. I want to reinforce once again, y'all, nothing is too small. This is not something you can do alone in isolation. It cannot. Global problems cannot be solved by individuals in isolation. That itself is showing what it is. Allow your belief systems to be challenged. Seek out the people that fuel your fire, and even if it's one person, look, we're doing this on a platform. I like to say, look, they try to zap us twice. We had to come back, we come back stronger, we out here, we laugh through it. Also, this does not have to be something we mope and scream through. Like I laugh when I talk to Divine. I got a big smile on my face because it gives me hope, right? And I think that fear-based thinking is something we can work on together to get rid of. So when you are feeling that way, just know that, like, take off your shoes and walk into earth. The spring is coming. We're dealing with better weather right now. Like, do not stay in isolation on our phones, y'all. I'm here because we're here blowing a call to action to say, come to events like what Divine's doing. Come to the Artivist trainings and the mixers and do this. And we won't turn people away because we need to work on these things together and hold space for each other. Divine, I want to pass it to you for any final thoughts, or if you want to express something, whether that be a poem, a song, or some words. I'm going to grab the guitar in a little bit, and we're going to go out with the music. But if you want to express anything artistically, or there's any thoughts also to give people your contact information, we will tag you definitely in this, and in the YouTube, your description will be put on there so people can get in touch with you and reach out and learn more about the work that both you and Creative Expressions are doing, because we're in this together and it's in solidarity, so make those partnerships. So once again, any final thoughts on your mind, if there's any upcoming events or things you want to mention, and then if there's any form of creative expression or singing or poetry or anything that you want to share with the people, and I'll start doing a little background music for you if you choose. But I'm here, and I want to say, wow, this was a powerful hour with you, and I just look forward to continuing to build with you and learning from you, right? Me and Divine have both been doing the work, but I am gaining ideas from her as she is from me, and it's a potluck. We're all exchanging these things in the name of community organizing and solidarity. So we are here. We are here. I pass the mic to you, Divine.
I really wish that this elevator was not in this background making all that noise.
Oh man, that's it. We're walking through the struggles out here.
Honestly, I think what's
Let me see if
coming
I can
up for
find the key of
me.
the elevator.
Oh no. I think
B
what's coming
flat.
up for me first and foremost is just thank you, Y, for creating this space and for creating this series for folks here. And, just talk from the heart about, how we are showing up for one another in our communities. Speaking of the work that I'm doing with young people, our application is open, y'all. It's open. So if you know somebody 14 to 19 years old that is interested in doing this groundwork and at least learning, getting that political education, our Summer Institute application at the Gaia Network is open. As far as my contacts, this page is private, but you can find me on my other page. What is it even called? I think it's called Divine Yaya Activist, something like that.
We'll tag it.
I'll tag
We'll
it at the
tag it.
bottom.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all that's coming up for me right now. Trying to think if there's a song that I want to sing. I don't know. I don't know. This elevator is kind of ruining my vibe.
It's all good. Not
Hmm.
necessary, but always appreciated and encouraged. Divine's working through the construction struggles, and
Yeah.
still the movement must go on, right?
Hmm. The only song there's a song that just keeps coming up into my head right now. How does it go? 'Cause I'm also navigating my relationship with my faith and with God. So the song that's coming up for me right now, I think it's just called Hallelujah. So I'm gonna sing that if that's okay.
Yeah,
Just
go ahead.
like a verse.
Take it away.
Okay.
Take it away.
I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. And I can't believe I'm forgetting the lyrics to this song. It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor clause, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. And I'll leave it at that. I was not prepared to sing today, but I'll leave
Hey,
it at that.
well, look, Divine takes risks. That's what we do over here at Artivist Talks. We put it into action, and we transmogrify that energy into something. Once again, we will tag Yaya Network in here. We will get it in, and we will allow you guys to connect. Remember, the power is in you. Even if you make a gathering in your living room, even if you make a yeah, Two Feathers said. Two Feathers is up tomorrow. We're going to have another Artivist Talk. We are featuring as many women as possible this month. We want to shed light on all the amazing women doing art, organizing, community work, and beyond. And we are just so honored to have you, Divine. I can say every time I speak to you, I am enriched, I am enlightened, and I am motivated to know that I'm not alone in this struggle and not alone in this journey. And yeah, you are here. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Zuby. Thank you, Divine, for putting your Yaya activist page. I'm going to make sure we tag it in there. Any call for questions? We got a couple people in the chat. Thank you to Beth Bliss for introducing us to Yaya space as well as Divine. But if you guys have any questions before we close this up, please give us, write them right in the chat. I found the chords to Hallelujah. I'm strumming them along. And then, we're here. We'll give it another minute or so. Any questions, y'all? Thank you, Divine. Always on time. Found that love in the darkness we shine. I organize and activate my organism. Found it all when it was deep inside the rhythm. I know God's inside, can't look out, but I know when you here, I can look out for my people if we ever caught inside of the doubt. I don't care what I say, the words come out of my mouth. I'm just letting my soul fly across open sky. And I know we all can fly. Hallelujah, y'all. We made it to the end of Artivist Talk number 10. We out here taking risks, calculated risks with intention and purpose. Please look up the Yaya Network. Please look up Divine at the handle she put, divine.yayaactivist. She's doing amazing, brilliant work. If you know any youth that should be involved in the program, hit that application. If you want to learn more about what we're doing, slide up in the DMs respectfully. And if you know any women that should be featured on this talk, Two Feathers is up tomorrow. Zuby, we want you in here. We need more voices, y'all. And the same thing that we're doing, y'all, this is the same internet connection people stare at memes on. People waste their time doing things that they might not know. The same tools we have can be used to transmogrify energy. And then take this, I put it on the YouTube, we spread the message, and then we just do what we got to do. Thank you, Divine, for your time and your alignment and all the amazing things that you stand for and you are. I'm so excited for your growth and the work you've done so far. I please want to send you a big virtual hug. And I just want you to know that anything I can do to help you keep on doing the amazing work and to continue learning from you, I stand with you in solidarity, in camaraderie, and whatever resources I can extend to you, please know that they're always there for you. And if any of this can be used and spread between your networks and to other people, please know that that door is always open. She said it best, y'all. The answers are in us. We are going to be the change. Stop waiting for it. Peace, love, harmony, and hallelujah.
All right,
Artivist Talk
y'all.
10, complete.
Peace.